the personal narratives of their endeavours and their quest for knowledge, if you like. History of science is a large part of Harvard. This place has got an amazing history of science department.
Yeah.
The chair is Anne Harrington, you have Peter Gallison, you have Steve Shapin. Do you agree with me, first of all, that history of science is a good thing?
I think as a topic it is. I mean, I think there has been a somewhat adversarial stance towards science in the culture of academic history of science, that many historians of science see their role as a kind of debunking, as trying to show that scientists are just human, they're advancing the interests of their class, their gender, their race, they're just another culture with no particular claims to the truth. That's been kind of the religion of some academic history of science, unfortunately. But as a topic, I couldn't agree more. It's fascinating both in giving us insight as to pitfalls that we should avoid and where ideas came from, and also humanizing science, showing that this is a game that anyone can play.
Yeah. I mentioned Stephen Shapin. He's written extensively on these things.
Yeah.
Wonderful stories, and wonderful books about the foundations of science or the foundation of the Royal Society, which will be 350 years ago next year. So there's this longest running business enterprise in science, it seems to me. And he's written about Hooke and so on and so forth, and Boyle. But he also has a new book out called The Scientific Life, A Moral History of a Late Modern Vocation.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to couple that thought to who scientists are now to another paper of Shapin's which is actually titled How to be Anti-Scientific. And he lists a number of contentious or provocative meta-scientific claims, things like there's no such thing as a scientific method, modern science lives only in the day and for the day, and therefore resembles much more a stock market speculation than a search for the truth about nature. New knowledge is not science until it's made social. These are the things that you hate, I know. An independent reality in the ordinary physical sense can neither be ascribed to the phenomena or the agencies of observation. Scientists do not find order in nature, they put it there, and so on and so forth. Modern physics is based on some intrinsic acts of faith. Scientific community is tolerant of unsubstantiated just-so stories, and so on and so forth. And then he pulls a little twist at the end and says, sorry, I've been kind of hoaxing you. These are all things that have been said by scientists. Oddly enough, by Steve Weinberg, Jacob Bronowski, Dick Lewontin, and so on and so forth. So the sense of what science is, what it can do, what it ought to do, and so on, is still this contentious thing. And I think that the public perception is that it's supposed to deliver certitude, hence these relativistic issues that are going on here. But plainly, we know that it doesn't deliver certitude. You pick up the newspaper 2 days ago, recently, and you'll see some story about, well, sorry, the thing about the depression gene wasn't quite right.
I mean, I don't think any scientist would say or claim that it delivers certitude, but it is designed to increase confidence. That's different from certitude. As evidence comes in, you revise your beliefs accordingly. But if we didn't have some kind of accumulation, if we didn't get a better and better picture of reality, albeit never certain, then there'd be no point in having science if it was just shifting fashion. That, I think, very much speaks against the scientific spirit. You've got to be careful about those quotes where scientists sound relativistic. Usually they do that when they're criticizing their opponents. It's a view that I call relativism for the other guy. Your views are shaped by society, etc. They never seem to apply that to their own views. So while acknowledging that scientific conclusions, like any knowledge, is other than mathematical certainties, they're always tentative. They're always subject to revision. Nonetheless, we do get better and better at it. Our confidence in certain things does increase. Otherwise, there really would be no point.
Yeah, so your point reminds me of the famous scene from The Ascent of Man where Bronowski is at the pool at Auschwitz and he's talking about the dangers of a quest for certainty.
Yes, that's right, for especially ideologies that claim, that's right.
And he quotes Oliver Cromwell in the end, I beseech you in the bowels of Christ. Think it possible that you might be mistaken.
It's a terrific expression. And I think that I mean, I think scientists ought to hold two beliefs. There is a truth, and I don't know what it is. but you do your darndest to try to find out. It'll always be true that you won't know what it is, but you make your best case, and collectively we try to maximize our confidence.
So, given that little conversation we've just had, do you want to revise in any way your statement about what the rightful place of science is?
Oh, no, I think science, and any person who is interested in the truth, which means any reasonable, rational person, ought to be seeking the best and truest understanding of the world attainable. I think science is simply the exercise of doing that with certain domains, like how the physical world works. I think it's continuous with every other attempt to ascertain the truth, and I think it ought to be respected for that reason.
During the formation of the Royal Society, which was 1660, as you know, and around that time there was some work being done by Oldenburg, who became the first secretary of the Royal Society and was responsible for the publication of Philosophical Transactions, which is a hugely important part of the whole enterprise since it's a peer-reviewed journal, first real peer-reviewed journal. But he and a couple of other people, Samuel Hartlib one, and a man called Hack on the other place, were known as intelligencers. There were the virtuosi, who were the sort of elite. There were the mechanics, as they were known at that time, who actually did the experimental work. It was not clear. Hooke was thought more of as being a mechanic than anything else, because he was great at doing experiments. And these other folks were called intelligencers, and they were building communities and networks of and about science. Oldenburg travelled a great deal on the continent and so on. I think of that there's a great need for the intelligencers right now, people who are doing some of the communication of science and so on. And I think of you as obviously a practitioner of science, but also you have a role as an evangelist in some sense and as a communicator, an intelligencer. Am I thrusting too much on your shoulders there?
It's certainly an aspiration. Yeah, to share the excitement and the knowledge and the whole attitude of skepticism of received wisdom, attempts always to go deeper, understand more thoroughly. I mean, those are ideals that I think excite scientists and that ought to be shared together with our knowledge, and it's certainly something that I try to do.
There's something on the above the elevators as I come into the buildings, William James Hall. It's a quote of William James's. And it does seem to me relevant to this debate we had about science and its place in society. He says the community stagnates without the impulse of the individual, and the impulse dies away without the sympathy of the community. And that does seem to me a very eloquent statement about a possible relationship between the scientific community and the larger community of which it is part.
Well, I'm very proud to work in a building that has that as its motto, its reminder about the elevators every day. And William James is one of my heroes, so it's particularly pleasing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a community is, in some sense, it's an abstraction. It's a bunch of individuals, although the whole is clearly more than the sum of its parts. And science, above all, is an enterprise that tries to get this collectivity called the scientific community, or in fact the community at large, really, to understand things in a way that no individual person ever could. So when it comes to even a subfield of knowledge, color vision or language development in children, there isn't one person who has all of the knowledge that we have. Science is done in the hopes that there'll be some greater collectivity. Science is a kind of a wiki where everyone makes a contribution and the whole thing kind of stands above and beyond the individual members. It's a curious thing that works so well, that for any bit of knowledge that you seek to find, there won't necessarily be one person who knows it all, but amongst the community both of living people and of written works, and now electronic works,